I'm Gamer Mommy, and in today's video, I'm counting down and talking about my top 5 favorite games of all time.
Oh my god, who the hell cares?
Starting with number 5, A Way Out. Growing up, my dad and I used to play Mario World, fishing bass, and bowling in Wii Sports. I can still hear him telling me to tighten the string on my wrist so I don't throw the remote into the TV again. Nor will I forget when I'd go to my cousins while they were playing Battlefield and start arguing over whose turn it is based on who was the oldest. Which is why this game is one of my favorites. The nostalgia and memories of split screen gaming with family. It felt like a great and fun bonding opportunity, and to also see how well you and a person can work together. The game actually requires 2 players. However, you didn't have to be next to them anymore in order to enjoy it together. You could play online as long as they were on the same platform. Even though it wasn't cross platform or there wasn't post game content, the story itself kept me engaged. You and another person play as Vincent and Leo. They are inmates at their local prison who meet and find out that they want to see the main antagonist, Harvey Oswald, pay for his betrayal that led to their arrest. As you progress, the characters form a relationship of their own and get to know a lot about each other, such as their relationships with their family. Considering that they started as strangers and grew so quickly, this game is definitely focused on character development and how well 2 people could come together over a common enemy. But don't judge a book by its cover, as there was a twist that they gave the story which was planned really well and a little unexpected. All I'll say is there's much more to this story that may change how you play. Number 4, Batman Arkham Collection, but specifically Batman Arkham Knight. Batman Arkham Knight had a lot of great qualities. For starters, the open world Gotham City was very detailed and looked absolutely stunning. There was plenty of content and things for you to do, such as side missions, challenges, and the DLCs like Harley Quinn and Batgirl, which had stories of their own. The combat system felt smooth, fluid, and satisfying, along with the stealth. Visually, there were a lot of high quality graphics and attention to details, such as the rain on Batman's suit or the faces of Joker or Scarecrow. I also like the fact of being able to interact with the environment, whether to take down enemies or destroying parts of buildings. The only thing that was difficult at first was driving the Batmobile, but once you learn the controls and how to handle it, it doesn't take away from the gameplay and is actually pretty easy. The storyline, just as the others on this list, made me feel connected to the character in the game, especially because Batman is always portrayed as this serious person, closed off, liking to work alone, and isolating himself at times to protect those that he loved. However, in this game, we not only see the safety of others around him put into jeopardy, but also given an insight into the mind, fear, and relationship that Batman has with himself, his enemies, and those around him. I say this game gave you a more in-depth view of his vulnerability and the humanity in Batman himself and not Bruce Wayne.
So you're going to use a reconstruction of Staggy's handprint to access the computer. Oh, that's genius, Bats, really. Oh, I know. When you're done, let's hack his online dating profile.
Telltale, the creators of the Walking Dead series, also made a couple of Batman games. They were told mostly from the perspective of Bruce Wayne, and there are actually times where you can choose whether to approach a situation as Batman or as Bruce. This game also had a really engaging storyline, as well as that there were some twists and turns, which I kind of had expected and could have guessed was going to happen, but it still wasn't so much so cliche of a story that I wouldn't have continued to play. Number 3, The Walking Dead series. I initially had given this game a try on Xbox 360 when I was trying to unlock achievements, but as soon as I started playing, I quit. As at the time I didn't like choice based games, I always felt that the story was limited as you only got to see and experience the story that you chose to make. I preferred a story that didn't have a lot of choices where I didn't have to guess what could or should happen. And even though I could play the game more than once to see the different possible outcomes, it felt almost impossible to do as the endings seemed endless. However, once I got over that pressure, I grew to enjoy the series, becoming emotionally invested with the development of the characters and their respective storylines in relation to the main protagonists of the series, Lee and Clementine. Excluding, of course, Season 3, A New Frontier, which Clementine does appear in the game, however, she isn't really the main character, or in also the spin off, Michonne. In my opinion, it's kind of hard to explain this series as easily, due mostly to the fact that each game has its own story, characters, and even situations. You really would have to play it for your own experience, which it's very much worth it. I'd say the common theme you'll see is character development and that the enemies are not the zombies, but the humans. A great reminder that it's not the monsters you should be aware of, but rather the people around you. Number 2, Gears of War 3. I first became interested in the series when a loved one at the time saved a Gears of War 2 disc for me when someone was getting rid of it. From there, I became addicted to it. My mom wasn't comfortable with me playing online yet, so every day after school, I'd play Build Your Own Team Deathmatch in the training grounds. Then I'd set the AI difficulty to insane as Team Locust on my favorite map, Blood Drive. It wasn't until I became curious about the campaign that I decided to give it a try, as at first I thought story mode was boring. But I was completely wrong. It was really, really good. It had plenty of action, a bit of drama and tension between the characters, and some hilarious witty banter moments. My favorite scene to play is Intestinal Fortitude,
I'm coughing up blood that ain't mine.
when the squad gets swallowed by the giant worm and have to cut their way out. Even though I loved Gears of War 1 through 3 and Judgment, Gears 3 takes home the gold in my opinion. Yeah, sure, in Gears 2 you get to ride a Reaver, a Brumok, and fight a Corpse while riding the Brumok, but in Gears 3 to me it seemed to have a lot more action, adventure, weapons, and executions. As well as the story was richer, more in-depth drama, some continuing from the previous games, which caused more tension between the characters. The return of characters that you may have thought were dead but aren't, and they may end up dying in this one. The relationship between Marcus, his father Adam, and Dom is put to the test tremendously. A lot of wins and losses in this game cause you to feel hope at one moment, but then sadness the next. They also had Ice-T, a celebrity, appear as a character named Griffin. He, just as Marcus, is a leader and doesn't like to be told what to do.
And especially no fucking car.
Definitely thought I was going to see a fight break out between the two. The animosity felt very real, and also the nostalgia when some of the cutscenes were in like 360 30 FPS. It's a campaign that will leave you with a roller coaster of emotions and a personal connection with Marcus afterwards. The reason I didn't include Gears 4 and 5 is because I didn't feel that same connection I had with the previous games in regards to both the characters and the storyline. I wasn't as open to accepting their campaigns despite the inclusion of some of the previous characters. I did finish the Gears 4 campaign and liked it a bit, but did not play anything else once I finished it. I started Gears 5, but could only get to halfway as it felt long drawn and unable to engage me. However, despite this, I am still very eager to see Gears 6 if it's something that is still happening in the future. Now, before I get to my number one favorite game of all time, I'd like to give an honorable mention to the Outlast series. It is a first-person horror game that is played from the perspective of investigative journalists sent to look into the strange reports about the Murkoff Corporation and their form of treatments used as experiments on their patients, staff, and even people. The reason I am mentioning this game is because I really love the fear that it gives you. Even after you finish playing it, it's a game that will leave you with some effects, which is exactly the same reason why I will never play the Whistleblower DLC, as it is much more graphic and uncomforting than the main game itself. If you're already familiar with the game or have even played it, then you know exactly the scene which I am referring to. Then you can also agree that it was an unforgettable experience and maybe disturbing to others. Viewer discretion is highly advised. The second Outlast wasn't as scary to me as the first. It did have some good jump scares and moments that were pretty disgusting or nasty. I also became confused sometimes in the story, but that's really just because I didn't read the documents that you can pick up in the game. There were some funny moments and it was less stressful to play. It was less intense even while streaming it and even playing alone. I can honestly say I could easily play this one again with no problem. At number 1, my favorite game of all time, Watch Dogs. Almost every gamer has that one game that they will never ever get tired of playing. It comforts them and usually has a special meaning in their life. To start off, I've never been to Chicago, but I thought the developers did a really nice job at the graphics and details of the city, which there's actually an achievement you can earn if you visit every landmark on the map. The hacking mechanisms with online decryptions, hacking other players, and a bit of free roam, which before this at the time I had never heard of a hacking game, so everything seemed very unique and original. Voice actors were really accurate to the characters that they portrayed. You definitely had a feeling of what these characters would sound like if they were in real life. Post-story content such as the side missions, contracts, digital trips, mini games, and even T-Bone's Bad Blood DLC, which also has missions in it as well, and free roaming, have a story of their own. Some may even continue from the main story. The Bad Blood DLC is an in-depth insight into T-Bone's life, who just like Aiden had skeletons in his closet he needed to deal with. And a character in the main story you think is dead but isn't is the main antagonist in the DLC. And who can forget Visceral Carnage's John Wick gameplay video? I mean, the combat, takedowns, and parkour looked so satisfying and way ahead of its time in the video gaming world. But what really makes this game my all-time favorite was the storyline. You play as Aiden Pierce, a hacker who tragically loses his niece after a hit was placed from a past mistake. Unable to let go and in search of answers with a vengeance, he embarks on a journey to find those answers while still trying to protect the citizens of Chicago. As I kept playing, I found myself becoming more and more invested in Aiden himself, which I believe the developers were trying to do. Throughout the game and before every mission, Aiden will narrate or may state his internal thoughts about an in-game situation. You really are put into the mind, body, and feelings or emotions of this character, which makes it more realistic, connecting, relating, and immersing you into the game even more. It's not cliche, and as expected, there were a lot of twists and turns that surprised me. It's more of an experience and lesson learner, such as the importance of letting go and witnessing a man drive himself into isolation because he feels it's his responsibility to be a hero and protect everyone, but ultimately can't and is unable to accept that failure. Sounds to me like someone else I know. Oh yeah, Batman. I'm not sure if the creators were trying to reference Batman, as Aiden does kill and is a thief, and he can hack bank accounts and harm cops and be feared out of the public, which gives him similarities to that of Hitman, taking on decryptions and contracts. Still, there's no denying the similarity between that of Aiden and Batman. An obvious one is Aiden being called a vigilante and him losing someone in a tragic way, leading him to a lifelong change to protect those he loves and working alone. This game is limited in terms of character development in my opinion, as Aiden continues to remain the same even after he gets his revenge and the answers he was looking for. He doesn't really gain anything but loses more. It isn't until Watch Dogs Legion Bloodline DLC that he really changes and has a realization. It's a relatable experience even if you don't go through what Batman and Aiden did, as you understand the stress of wanting to protect those around you, but realizing that you can't save everyone, no matter how hard you try, which in the end only leads to a life of further solitude while pushing away the very people you want to protect. If you enjoyed the video, please don't hesitate to like, subscribe, and comment if you agree with this list. And let me know what are your favorite video games of all time.